So one thing that I did to stop self-sabotaging anytime I saw it was 3 words: do it now. So if I got an opportunity, instead of staying stuck in my mind or writing it down on a piece of paper, I would say, what's one action that I can do to push this forward slightly?
All right, all right, all right. Welcome to the Align Us Mastermind podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Nikhil Sharma, and I'm so grateful to have you guys here with us today. Today's topic, we're going to be discussing self-sabotage, and I have 2 wonderful co-hosts with me here today. I'm going to go ahead and let them introduce themselves.
So first guy from the Align Us team, all right, Kevin Drummond, mindset coach, business development manager. Proud to be here today, talk about my journey, my obstacles, and how you can prevent yourself from getting in your own way.
I don't know if I can top that one, but I'm fit like Chris, and I'm a functional fitness coach and mindset coach as well. Just giving back to the world, and here with 2 great guys. So let's chop it up, y'all.
All right, I like that. Great introduction, guys. Yeah, so we're talking about self-sabotage, and that's something I think every human at some point in their life, they put themselves through. And, it's something that I know I've done to myself for the past 41 years. I'm 42, by the way, but I feel like in the last year, I've sort of honed in on cutting back on that self-sabotage. And, I don't think you can ever, clearly, remove that from your life, but you can certainly limit that, negative self-talk that's causing you to go into self-sabotage mode. And so that's what we're here to kind of discuss and help others hopefully realize patterns that they're having, whether that's self-sabotaging in their personal life, their professional life, and any of their relationships. I think we'll realize that we're all very common. We're all very, we're all kind of related in that sense. We all do it in some sort of manner, but sometimes we're not aware of that, right? And, I think we can kind of delve into that a little bit more.
So let me ask you this question, because you mentioned something just now. You said patterns. How does one start to recognize patterns or be aware of the patterns that are existing in their life? And how did you kind of start to see those patterns and finally say, like, enough is enough, like it's time that I do something about it?
Yeah, well, first of all, just for people to understand what self-sabotage is, it's basically we're getting in the way of our own success in some sort of matter, right? And a lot of times it's what's going on in your brain, and so how that showed up for me, and it showed up in 2 different phases of my life. Personally, in my relationships, and then, professionally. And so what that looks like when it comes to relationships is that, for me, my mom passed away about 10 years ago. And so when I lost that emotional bond, I started looking for that in other individuals and other females, and hadn't fully processed the grief at that time. So my vibration was much lower. Right. And so when my vibration was lower and I was in that grief, I was in that anger, I was in that guilt and shame mode, that attracted that type of energy. And so what that type of energy was somebody that was like my mom, in a way of very caring, very nurturing, but that, independent energy wasn't there. It became very codependent, right? There were features of that individual that were there, but I was in this grief period that I wasn't focusing on. I was actually focusing on my work, and we don't like to sit in pain, right? So we do anything to avoid that. So in my case, I was working extremely hard, and then getting my emotional fulfillment in these types of relationships. But what starts happening is that you realize that you're not putting enough into the relationship because you're not fully healed, right? And so you're like, this person keeps giving to you and giving to you. And then you start thinking, wow, I don't really deserve this. Like, I'm not good enough for this, right? Like, I don't deserve somebody that's this kind, this caring to me, this loving. That's what was going on in my mind, right? Especially when it came to these relationships. And then what would happen then? Because those self-sabotaging thoughts were running through my brain, that caused me to be a little bit detached from that individual, right? I didn't put enough emotions there. And then it caused me to, build up a lot of shame or guilt because I wasn't doing that. And I was just in such a bad place that, the self-sabotage just starts compounding and compounding. And after a while, those relationships, failed. Right.
So
So,
thoughts and emotions, essentially, you were able to see how you were feeling. You saw that your energy had dropped following the death of your mom, and it started affecting your relationships. And then that turned into doubt and thoughts that weren't serving you anymore. That makes complete sense. Just the fact that you were aware of your feelings and emotions. I honestly can't even tell you when I started becoming more aware of my emotions, but I can say that once you have awareness of that, you start to alchemize the energy around you when it doesn't serve you. What I mean by that is when you see that the energy around you is negative, for example, and you're a positive person, you're trying to always cultivate positive environments, you try to convert that energy, get everyone in a similar energy to yourself. Or if you see that that's just completely impractical, you slowly retract and get yourself out of that situation, right? So I think just being aware of your energy, being aware of your thoughts, because I started to see that environments that I could not control, it was time for me to go. I think that's an important thing to actually talk about or speak on today. Is it doesn't matter how positive you are, sometimes you gotta call it quits. You gotta pretty much just get the fuck, like, just get out, because at the end of the day, like, your mind suffers, your wellness suffers, uh who you're presenting and showing up as suffers. So a lot of times, like, we condemn ourselves because we're not our best selves, but a lot of times it has a lot to do with the environment. Think of a garden. If you have a garden, you have a seed, you have sunlight, you have water. Why is it that some flowers are able to bloom better? Yes, the weather will be taken into account, but a lot of times it's the environment, it's the soil, it's the minerals. Sometimes that soil has been ravaged for like years. So you have to really take in that soil into account, as well as like what other factors may be in place. Just being aware of it.
The environment is crazy. Like I would say my environment or just certain people I've surrounded myself with has been my version of, I guess, my challenge when it comes to enlightenment and what's, factored into me self-sabotaging myself. There's this analogy that I always hear, and they talk about the thermostat effect, to where, if you're so used to, the house being at 70 degrees, and all of a sudden the temperature drops, or all of a sudden the temperature, increases, your brain is like, yo, what's going on? And automatically you want to cool it down, or you want to warm it back up to what you're used to. And that just alludes to my self-sabotage journey, was the people that were around me. I've always been one of those people that, you want to bring everyone with you. If you have a huge realization, a huge idea, everybody, look at this. Check me out. Look what we just learned. But people, everyone moves at their own pace of life. And that's something that I had to learn, trying to bring everyone with me and realizing that, like, these are my thoughts, these are my realizations, and maybe I can be of value if I were to separate and, lead the people that I'm expecting to go with me or to lead me. I just had this thermostat where I wanted things to be what they always were. So that was how I self-sabotaged, and how I got over that, and how I encourage other people to get over that, is to love on yourself and trust yourself. Trust the fact that you're learning. Trust these realizations.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I think that trust part is very, very important, and I think, where did that trust get lost, right? So it's important for us to understand that it is our birthright. It is literally our birthright to have the most success that we possibly want in this lifetime. That was given to us the day we were born, right? To have the most loving relationships, to have the career of your dreams. But what happened along the way? Why did that, all of a sudden that birthright of ours start, fading from our mind, right? Society, right? Environment, right? The trauma that we start experiencing. people telling us that, hey, those dreams of yours, come on, man, that's not realistic, right? And just that chatter that's in our ears from the day we're born starts making us question everything. And so when you start questioning everything, you start losing, those dreams that you had, and you start conforming to what society, believes in you, believes that they think that you should become. In my case, my parents were always in my ear for becoming a doctor. It's something that, what they considered was, the epitome profession, and, something that I needed to hold myself to. So I was going down that path. But what happens is that when you're not free to make those choices, and you're making choices based on external factors, there's a lot of negative self-talk that starts going on. And so you start having so many negative thoughts, that those negative thoughts, affect your emotions. And then when you're in that low vibe state, you're starting to feel angry, you're starting to feel resentment, you're starting to have a lot of pride. And then, that spills over to actions that may not reflect who you really are. So, it's important for us to understand that our thoughts are not always right. Our emotions are temporary, and we can control our actions. And so when we're able to understand that, we're able to manifest better realities for ourselves. And so, yeah, I just that was a really powerful moment when I was able to realize that those three things.
Yeah, awareness is so huge. And both of you spoke on this, both knowing yourself and loving on yourself. Those two things are so very, very crucial when you're trying to reach your full potential. And you all both spoke on the aspect of family and the people around you. So a lot of times your vision for yourself is not the same vision that others or your family has for you. For myself, I know that that was a huge hurdle that I had to get over. I believe we spoke on it on another episode, but my family, just like you, Nick, wanted me to be a physician. That was what I wanted for myself. But life happens, situations happen, things are uncovered, and you start to feel things within yourself that you didn't know was there. And so you follow that path. And when you see that it's fulfilling and your purpose changes, you have to seek that out, and follow through. And that's what I did. And it's a very difficult journey because now you have to realize that you're no longer doing what someone else wants. So they're going to begin projecting their feelings and emotions towards you and how they feel about that. And a lot of times we internalize that and we think it's something that we're doing wrong or that we're bad people, when really we're just not aligning the current reality that we're trying to live with the reality that they wanted for us. And when that dissonance and contrast happens, there's a lot of conflict. So that was something that resonated from what you all just said, but being able to have that self-love and say, hey, my feelings matter, right? The life that I'm trying to create for myself matters. I am an important person. I'm a valuable person. And it's okay for me to fulfill the things, the desires and thoughts that I have for myself. And being able to respect that, honor that, and see it through. A lot of times we self-sabotage because we don't have, and you spoke on this, Chris, respect or self-worth within ourselves. So once you build up that respect within yourself, that self-worth, that respect, you start building up W's, you start building up that worth, and you start changing your actions, you start changing your life based off of that, the way we visualize and the way we see ourselves. So that's huge. Just being able to have that self-love and being able to value that is life-changing. And you'll start to see the patterns that I had asked you about earlier, Nick, like how do you begin to see that? I think I kind of answered my own question. It becomes more apparent when you start looking within, getting to know yourself better, and start trying to serve your purpose and the things that you need for yourself versus that of the people around you.
That's a word. That was a major word. I want to speak on on that aspect of, once again, stacking the wins, building up the confidence in yourself to, follow your thoughts, your beliefs, as opposed to what you've always been following. That's a process. That is not easy. And for anyone listening, it's expected, expect the journey to be up and down. One day you're on, one day you're not. I think how we respond best and continue to build those W's are in the times that are trying, in those times that are hard, when we are doubtful of, life, because everything in front of us is uncertain. It's important to continue to still bet on yourself, to continue to still pour into yourself and cultivate your ideas, your thoughts, your beliefs. And this is something that I learned very recently, I'd say in the last year. You just, every time you self-sabotage, it's funny, we're talking about self-sabotage. Every time you, I guess, you don't listen to yourself, or you take credit away from yourself, you're tearing down your self-confidence, and you're literally taking a step back, and you have to continue to stack the W's to take those steps forward again. I think a lot of us are in this never-ending cycle of, maybe you take 10 steps forward and then you'll take 8 steps back. So it looks like you haven't moved, but it's a process. It's a process, and it just requires a lot of work. It requires a lot of faith. And I guess that's what I'll end my point with, is whether that faith is a religion, a self-belief, a belief in the universe, whatever you want to call it, we all need to be able to move on faith. And faith there is no faith when you're looking behind, because hindsight is 2020 all the time. But there is faith when you're looking in front, when you're looking ahead, and you need to maintain that faith. Figure out what your faith is and step out on that faith, because the world recognizes that and it will reward you ultimately.
Love that. Move on faith. I was
Yeah.
actually going to drop that gem as far as action. I'm all about just small action steps that can be life changing. So one thing that I did to stop self-sabotaging anytime I saw it was 3 words: do it now. So if I got an opportunity, if I saw something that was possible, instead of staying stuck in my mind or writing it down on a piece of paper, I would say, what's one action that I can do to push this forward slightly, to act on faith, right? So for example, if Chris shot me a text message and said, hey, there's this great opportunity for mindset coaches, this is what needs to happen, I'm immediately thinking, what are 3 things that have to happen? And what's the smallest of those steps? I'm going to do that small step, especially if it takes a short amount of time, right then in that moment. That adds momentum to whatever that possibility or opportunity is. And now, instead of self-sabotaging, I've already done something. So now my mind's thinking, hey, he might be serious about this. What else should he be doing? So that one thing, do it now, and having a do it now mentality started to change things significantly for me. Because when it comes to self-sabotage, one of the things that we do is we'll create a narrative that stops us from being successful, because we start to analyze things way too much. And instead of actually acting, we stay stuck, like you said, right? But it's better to take 10 steps forward and 8 steps back than just staying still and just thinking, because 10 minus 8 is 2. So you're still going forward, right? But just being able to do little things like that, do it now, just could be sending an email, it could be sending a text message, it could be making a phone call, something small. It could be calling someone that's going to hold you accountable. For example, Chris let me know about something, I'm going to give him a call. Hey, Chris, love this idea. Let's actually set up a call to discuss this further in the next 2 days. Now you have 2 people that are working towards that goal. The self-sabotage is now in the back. Now it's like, okay, we have 2 people that are both working towards this goal together. And now, instead of you just working on your own faith and working against your sabotaging ways on your own, you have 2 people. So that's my gem for the day, is just a do it now mentality. It's life changing.
So many gems today. Beautiful conversation. And the one thing that resonated with me that you just said, Kevin, was being stuck, right? And where does that feeling come from? It comes internally, right? And that internal process has been formed because of external processes. Because then oftentimes when we want to make a change, we start thinking about everybody else, how that's going to affect all my friends, all my family, my job, man. Then it becomes overwhelming, right? Like, me wanting to do something different is going to affect a lot of people. So maybe I should just keep it as status quo. I don't want to ruffle those feathers. It's very easy to fall back into that pattern because we start overwhelming ourselves with the possibility of disrupting the current status quo. And that's where people fail, right? That's where people get stuck in these little cycles, and I call them like karmic cycles, because we keep repeating them again and again, and all that does is start building up resentment inside of us, right? So what can we do to stop that pattern? For me, what worked best was, first, I needed to forgive whatever was going on in my past, right? Like I had to become present and grounded as to where I am right now in life. We can't, like Chris said, we can't change what has happened. And then I can't become anxious about, what the future is going to hold. I can't worry about what other people are going to think. Oftentimes I think we overanalyze how often other people are actually thinking about us. Because think about how your thought process throughout the day. How often are you really thinking about other people? Or are you thinking about that positive thought that's going on in your brain, right? Like that's happening more often than you worrying about what someone else is doing. So I think once you start realizing that, hey, people aren't talking about me left and right, that's not really happening. You ground yourself as to what's going on in the present. Then when you ground yourself, who are you? Because who you are up until now has been predicated by what society or your family has said that you are, right? And so when you start figuring out who you are by figuring out what your values are and figuring out what your character strengths are, you are more now empowering yourself. Like, oh, okay, I'm really into, for me, philanthropy and helping other individuals. I have a lot of hope. I have a lot of zest. I have integrity. Those are some of my character strengths that I, found out when I was going through this change process. How do I incorporate those things in what I want to do in my future? And so I've done exactly that, right? I've gone from being a physician, which is just a label, right? But internally, I'm a healer, right? I like to help people heal. So whether that's doing that physically or doing that mentally, it's healing. So this change that I've gone from being a physician to being, a CEO and an entrepreneur has been really tough. There has been so many negative thoughts that have gone through my brain to think that, hey, I'm not good enough. But those thoughts have become less and less because I've identified my character strengths. I've identified my values. I've strengthened my foundation, and I've created actions from that foundation, which at this point has become really powerful. And so I think people need to, understand that and realize that anything is possible once you, quiet the noise, you ground yourself to where you're at. If you have to go into hermit mode, you need to do that, and then start raising your vibration. And the biggest change in vibration is when you go from pride to courage, because it takes courage to get out of your ego and what self-limiting beliefs that you have to be able to attack what you see your future as being.
So what I just thought about was that we're writing our own movie script, essentially. And it's so funny because you said character strengths. We say it all the time, but we're all characters in our own movie. We're also the producer of our own movie. We're also the director of our own movie. We're the script writer of our own movie. And I think it would be a great exercise if we all took this week to write a short script for the rest of the year. Like, what does this movie look like in season? Let's say this is season 2 of this movie or of this series. Like, what's happening? What's the script? Like, who are the characters? Who's going to be guest starring in it? The guest starring would be like, the opportunities and people that we like to be introduced to our reality. I just think it'd be very interesting because, like Nick said, like there's a lot of labels that no longer serve us. We have the power to dictate who our character is going to be. Is it going to be a loved character, or is it going to be a character that's going to be hated by everyone? And why? Are you going to be hated because you're going against the grain and you're doing everything that people don't want you to do? Or are you hated because you're just maniacal and just doing just mean things and you're not considerate or empathetic? Like, what character do you want to be and how? And like I said before, like, who are the guest stars? What's the script going to be? And what's the outcome? What's going to be that climax when everyone's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening. I remember when he was talking about it in episode 1. Now we're almost at the season finale. This person just came in as a guest star. Could he possibly have this opportunity? What's going to happen? Like, we have the power to write that type of script. So that was powerful. So I'm definitely going to take on that exercise because I've never done that before. I've journaled before, but I've never taken the time to just write out a script as if it was a movie and say, hey, this is what I see happening. These are the people that I would love to guest star in this show. And let's see what happens. And just, write it out, put it to the side, move on.
I'm gonna do that.
Mic drop.
Yeah, that's lit. Word. I'm doing that. I'm doing that. It's a great idea. Because we don't I think we lose our sense of imagination. Like we lose that sense of creating a reality that we're in. So I'm definitely gonna take that one on.
Kevin, I think that's a perfect way to end the podcast. I think we've given a lot to the audience to be able to make into actionable plans. I really like what you're saying about creating a script for yourself. I think it's really important. I think people need to understand that, hey, we are the leading actors in our own life, and our journey is completely different than the journeys that are all around us. The universe has blessed each one of us with a skill set that is supposed to help the collective whole, right? And it's up to us on this journey. It's like consider it a game to be able to figure out what that skill set is and how that skill set is going to impact yourself and those around you. And when you're in that mindset, like, okay, it's up to me, it's like you're empowering yourself, right? Because at the end of the day, you are all you have. Yes, you have your family, but none of that, that doesn't help unless you are in the positive mindset of wanting to create the life that you are choosing, to create that resonates with your soul and with your soul's purposes.
Definitely. Nothing
All
but
right.
gems today. Thank you,
Nothing but
guys.
gems. Well, look, it's been a great podcast today. Thank you for all that are joining us. Until next time, peace.